live, and I'm here with Tolero.
Hello.
How you doing?
How you doing, everybody? Happy birthday, DDO.
Sweet. So, what was that mission control like when you realized that slimes were just basically spawning out of control?
So the funny thing was that was my very first mission control at Turbine, because that release was my first release when I joined the company. And so I was new in the community team, and they brought me in. They're like, "Here, you can monitor the mission control because you're on the community team now." I'm like, "Okay," because I had been, shadowing people to learn the role at that point. So I go into the mission control. We start to bring the worlds up, and we're watching things for a little bit. Everything seemed fine, and then all of a sudden, boom! Everything comes down, and we're like, "What was that?" We're like, "That's strange. Okay, let's try to set it back up again." And then, boom! Goes down again. We're like, "What on earth is going on?" So we have to start going through the logs, right? Because we collect logs on all these things so we can sort of narrow down what particular actions were happening.
Could you get a little closer to the mic, maybe? Yeah.
So we finally get through the logs. And while we're combing that, in the meantime, the QA people were in trying to test stuff too. And so they finally figured out in the log what was happening, and it was related to these slimes. So they go in to try to repro it, and you would go in, and the QA people send us a shot that's like that one. And they're like, slime is everywhere. We're like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Come and look at it." You would basically be surfing on top of the slimes right before the world came crashing down because there were just so many. And they're like, "How did that happen?" And we looked, and it's like, oh, because slimes, when you split them, they go from big to medium, medium to small, small to tiny. Somebody flipped something so it was going big to medium, big to medium, big to medium, over and over and over again. And so what had happened was a player was just farming favor, cast a blade barrier on top of a slime because they didn't want to deal with them, and then just boom, slime explosion.
Nice. Oh, other than the slime bug, what other classic moments of chaos can you remember?
Classic moments of chaos. Well, there was the time that when we went to launch Freetoplay in 2009, we had just done a big show at the Penny Arcade Expo in Seattle. And I had apparently given the whole team swine flu. And so during launch week, as we're all trying to get Free-to-Play out the door, which was a huge change for DDO, right? And I was so sick, I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't check my mail. It's the most sick I've ever been. And then one by one, more and more team members start succumbing to the swine flu. They're like, "Oh my God, I just checked with my doctor, I've got swine flu." So we're trying to do this mission control with like half the people missing because they're all sick. And then some of the people who were trying to substitute to help out, they're like, "Hey, I've been following the emails, but I don't work on DDO directly." So like that was a real team effort. We pulled in people from multiple projects to come make sure that DDO could go free to play that week.
Right. Did you just think about maybe delaying it for a week?
Oh no, at that point the swine flu thing was so close that like all the moving pieces were already in motion at that point. All the promotions that were going out, all the advertising, any of the sort of collaborative events we had with third-party vendors, everybody was ready to light up Monday, and Monday is pretty much when everybody came down with it. It was like, oh.
Blue Queen from Minion Monday says, "Much approval of your hair color." Your hair
Thank
color
you.
is, a lot of people have noticed that over the years.
Yeah, it's
just a thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the story behind it? Or is there no story?
Well, when I first moved out here for Turbine, 2007, I used to have my natural hair color, which is just very dark. And I would go to the stylist, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to try some highlights?" And I'm like, "Sure." She's like, "What color?" I was like, "I don't know, red." So we put in some red highlights. And I would go and get the highlights done for a while. And one time I switched stylist, and I told her I wanted red highlights, and she did my whole head like fire engine red. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool." And then as the red faded, I was like, "You know what, maybe I want to try some different colors." So I just kept going down the rabbit hole of colors. At this point, I actually found a photo of all the different times I've changed my hair color over the years working on DDO. I've literally hit every color in the rainbow except pink and...
Well, Noah's got you covered on the
yeah,
pink.
Noah's got pink covered. Yeah. I've done red, blue, white, silver, blonde, orange, gray, just all of them.
Story of the Mimic.
The story of the Mimic.
Yeah.
So the Mimic, if you can believe this Mimic has been with DDO for about, it'll be 10 years in the summer. I was hosting a party for DDO players at Gen Con before I came out to New England, and I was having a raffle. and I needed a way to have all the names collected. And I had gotten this treasure chest as like one of those like Harry and David's gift boxes. So the Mimic, at first it was just a collection thing for, prizes. And then when I got out here, I was like, you know what? This kind of reminds me of a chest in DDO. That's kind of cool. So I brought it to my desk. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? It's kind of like a Mimic if you like flap the lid. And then pretty soon it just became the Mimic. So we even put like fake teeth in it, and we'd bring it on the live stream sometimes. And he's just, ever since then, it's been the Mimic. But yeah, he's been with the DDO community for like years and years now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the
Now,
Mimic.
you started as a player on Tolero, doing a lot of role-playing in particular.
Yep.
I remember that was sort of your thing, as
Yep.
people did a lot of role-playing, and ended up working, doing some stuff with DDO Cast, and then pretty quickly ended up getting hired at Turbo. And it was really, if I recall, not really so much related to your DDO Cast work, although I'm sure they didn't hurt, but it was really related to your in-game event work.
Partially. It was, so at the time I had been running a lot of community building activities. The idea was to see, hey, when you don't have your party full, what else can you do when you're playing DDO? So we would just sort of use the game as our playground and go, hey, what if we have a fashion show? Or hey, what if we have a PvP contest? Or what if we have this role play hide and seek or whatever? And many other players were doing the same thing. So we started to network together to be like, hey, let's all of us sort of like try to promote each other's events and get like a lot of participation. And then on top of that, as part of that, getting to know the wider communities across the other servers, because remember, this was back before server transfers were available.
Right.
So as we all started to sort of talk about the way things were on each other's servers, I noticed, I was like, huh, really? Is that how that is on Argo? Really? I didn't know that. So we had these interesting conversations, and just for funsies, basically, I wanted to research if the fact that we couldn't server transfer actually had created subcultures in each of the servers. So I spent about a month going from server to server, because at this point people knew who I was, because I was like, oh, it's the event person. And I would just start documenting. I took like thousands of data points, basically. I'd look at what kind of names did each of the servers use, what kind of guild names did they use, who liked to dance. If I turned on Whack Dance, like, did one server have more people that would just randomly come up and dance with me or not? What kind of chat were they having in their general chats? Which servers had organized events, which servers didn't. I mean, because we had a lot of servers. So I compiled all this data, and then I aggregated, and so I did this big analysis project, and then just pro bono, I just put it on the forums. And, I tried to equate it to this concept of, it's like fish tanks, and each tank has its own ecosystem of fish, and they are certain percentages of this type of player. So around that time, the community managers at Turbine saw the report, because they'd seen videos and other stuff that we were all posting.
Yeah.
They saw the report, and they're like, that's what we need. We need someone who's willing to come in and help us do the analysis, help us cull through feedback, like focus on what makes players tick. Like, that's what we want, because a lot of their guys were focused on like, picture generation or making avatars or doing forum moderation, but they didn't really have somebody who fit that niche of how do we best collect feedback from the community and send it to the developers in a way that's actionable. So I started laying the roots of that for them, and that helped a lot.
I remember you did the Stormreach Olympics.
Yep.
And one of the coolest bits you did was one of the pieces was in House Kundark. And there was the big gap at the time, which is still there, except now you can't go on.
Yeah.
But back in the day, that chasm in House Kundark, if you jumped in, you would die.
Yeah, you would die. There was a death volume in it. If your body went down to a certain depth, you would pass through the death volume and it would kill you.
And there was no abundant step.
Nope.
This is all pre-monk and all that sort of thing. And the challenge for the Olympics bit was you need to get across the chasm.
Yep. So people were doing feather falls, some people were getting a running start, some people had figured out what they could climb on to give themselves the best angle to try to make it, and some people you would see them get like 3/4 of the way across and you think they'd get it, and then pew, and you're like, oh.
Now the trick is, and I think that this really points to your deviousness that you've seen throughout the years, is the answer is use the bridge.
Yes.
But you never showed them that. And
right.
How did you trick them into doing that?
Because the trick was, you had the bridge, and then you had this open area. When I began the event, I stood in front of the open area, so everyone just instantly assumed that behind me was where the starting line was, but I never told them that they had to start right there. I just said, get to the other side. And eventually, after a few people are dying and dying, because this was back when you had XP debt too, by the way. You died in the public space, you lost XP. So people are like XP debting themselves. And eventually somebody's like, wait a minute, I'm just going to walk across a bridge. I was like, you win. And they were like, what?
Yeah, I remember covering that, I think, for DDO Cast at the time. That was a lot of fun.
I can be very devious sometimes. It's all in good fun, but...
So has that helped you as an ecom manager? Or,
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Let's see.
Here's the big question. Why did we get rid of that? We should still have that death volume in House Kundar.
So, my jumping event brought that to the attention of the developers very, succintly. The thing that had caused them to put it up was when we went free-to-play, because it was a couple of years before it finally went up. Yeah. And preparation for free-to-play was a long time in building. We had to analyze how we were going to break out the content and, all the different stuff. So part of that was people went in each of the zones and sort of did an audit of what quests were in each area. They realized that they were like, wait a minute, this bridge, I remember there was a jumping event here, and what they were afraid of was DDO was going to go free-to-play. We were going to have a whole bunch of new people who had never played before. People wandering around focused on their map, trying to find where to go. And if you were looking at your map, it was really easy to auto-walk yourself off the edge and die, and we didn't want people to get upset and then rage quit over it. Yeah. So we started putting in more. It's the same reason they put handrails on big giant mountains that are clearly dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, all right.
I have so many devious stories.
Right, let's hear another.
Devious stories. So this was one from Community. We love to play with the community. Terrence and I would make different puzzles that people had to solve, and sometimes we would just play to kind of mix it up and bring some excitement. My favorite was the time that one of the web developers figured out a code for me that I could take a word and force replace it with another word. Even if a person edited the post, it would constantly run this query. We had a community member, I don't know if I'll say their name so as not to bring undue attention to them, but we had a community manager who was obsessed with the fact that Nat Gan was gone. So remember how we replaced Nat Gan with Tag Hardcastle, the new acrobat in the marketplace. Yep. But he would always come into every thread and go, where's Nat Gan? And something, he was just being silly, right? But he would bring it into any discussion we had. It was, where's Nat Gan? Where's Nat Gan? So one day I told the web developer, I was like, hey, give me that code. I switched Nat Gan with Tag Hardcastle. And so the guy starts doing his normal thing, and then it's auto-replacing, and he's like, hey, I just tried to write Tag Hardcastle, but it says Tag Hardcastle. And so then people are like, hey, what's wrong with you? And he's like, it says Tag Hardcastle. Every time I post, it says Tag Hardcastle. They're like, yeah, so? He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm trying to say Tag Hardcastle, but it keeps saying Tag Hardcastle. And he got to the point where he was so manic because everybody else, we only applied it to him. So other people came in because he finally found a way to spell out Nat Gan. And other people were like, oh, let me try it. And they posted and they were fine. And you just have this post of him screaming, Tag Hardcastle!
How much credit can you take for the broccoli?
For the broccoli?
Yeah.
The broccoli actually belongs. I don't know if he got to stop by on the stream. We have an art director gentleman who came up with the ad unit.
Was that Jeff?
Not Jeff. This was Rick Wolford.
Oh, okay. No, he hasn't stopped by.
Yeah. So Rick and the other marketing artists, they were trying to think of an ad unit that we could use that would show you that DDO was not just a 2D, because at the time people didn't really know free-to-play, and their only impressions of free-to-play were these sort of 2D scrolling, just not the kind of game that DDO is, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, I know, we'll make an ad unit that specifically calls that out. So they made this ad unit, and it was like, in Dungeons & Dragons, in some games you get to fight broccoli. I'm nutritious. So they bring out this little broccoli that jumps out. And at some point, the players were taking screenshots of broccoli because they thought the ad was hilarious. And so then broccoli started becoming this running joke. This artist saw that in the forums. And so then he took all of the assets that he had on the different layers and released them to players and said, here you go, make whatever you want. So then, the broccoli memes were amazing. It was so awesome. But yeah, Jerry's found the original ad unit.
Yeah, actually, why don't we take, we can talk while we're doing this,
sure.
But I'm going to play that right now for folks, just so that they have some sense of what it is that's going on here. Let's see.
Yeah, we had a whole series of these, too. The idea was, the first one was Broccoli versus Beholder, the next one was Driving versus Dragons, and the idea was you know, these types of games, it's like if you want a full game that's free to play, DDO is the game for you. Like, it's not just this very simple, flat, you know, basic experience fighting really weird, simple monsters. Like, no, we're going to show you really cool monsters, really in-depth dungeons, and it's free.
All right, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear this or not. That's the only question mark here. You may
It doesn't
have
have
to
a
go
lot of sound.
to the page.
It's mostly visual, because it was for a web ad unit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was just, this was combat for people back then. And we're like, you know what? Come play our game. You're actually going to see really cool 3D monsters. You're going to fight them in 3D. It'll be awesome. And it's free.
Yeah, yeah.
So then that blew up into the broccoli parody that we did. That's Tarrant on the left. On the right is Mr. Jim Drury, the man behind the broccoli.
And he actually dressed up as a broccoli.
Yes, he dressed up for Halloween as a broccoli, and then when he did that, he got my Tarrant to dress up with him, and that was their Halloween outfit. And I was like, guys, we've got to do a reenactment. We've got to. So we threw that together like in an afternoon, basically. And then we have so many outtakes from it, too, of just like the eyeballs falling off, or like them having the wrong timing.
And I'm going to let you guys go to our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Dungeons and Dragons, one long word, no ampersand, if you want to check out those outtakes there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've been around as long as bacon's been a thing in DDO.
More or less, yeah.
Do you know where it comes from? Why bacon?
Most people
I mean,
just,
of course, why not, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you know,
bacon has, it's a very popular, you know, pop culture thing, right? There's many different places that deify bacon. For us, some of the earliest bacon incidents were we had a puzzle. The DDO community is, the great thing about working on a D&D game is that the players know how to solve puzzles. And I mean really deep, complex puzzles. Because DDO has some challenging stuff compared to other stuff. It's not always just about swinging your sword. Sometimes you have to solve a puzzle, right? So we would make these multi-layered puzzles where, you know, layer one might be I make a forum post and you figure out that the first letter in the sentence spells something out, and then when you figure out what that spells, that tells you to go somewhere, and then when you go somewhere, so one of the steps in this, like, I think it was 7 or 8 layers deep puzzle was you would get these images of bacon. And these pieces of bacon were just laying in different patterns. And if you looked at the name of the image file, it told you what order to put the pictures of bacon in. And then if you lined up all the pictures, it would spell out the next clue. So it was me and Tarrant in the back of the Turbine offices with these pieces of raw bacon, laying them on a table, trying to get photos of them for this puzzle. The other employees are walking by, they're like, what the hell are you guys doing? So we spell out these letters, and it was very, you know, you had to put the bacon in the right places so that it would spell it properly. And we finally players find these bacon pictures, and we hid them all over the forums. I think there might even be a couple that are still there today, where like the E in Eladrin's name or something, like if you click on it, it goes to a piece of bacon.
Oh yeah, I didn't change that stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't about to be the
So if
one
you
to
see
get rid
pieces
of
of bacon laying
Yeah.
around in the community forums, that's still from that incident. And that was like 2008, I think.
Yeah.
So that was sort of one of the things, and we all were laughing about the fact that, oh, they found the bacon puzzle, right?
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then as that kind of chatter happened around the pit, people would overhear people talking about bacon. We also already had a big thing about tasty ham, and that had already been a running joke, and they're like, well, what about bacon? So then it became ham, bacon, and then it just kept growing and growing from there as different team members have worked on the project over the years.
Yeah. All right, I wanted to read this out because I thought it was an interesting thing. This one comes from Killstorm04. Hi all, I just wanted to say to DDO Stream that I started this game when I was 12.
Yeah.
I am now 22 and just wanted to say a big thank you to Turbine for the entertainment provided by your hard work. Been through it all from the epic loot, remember my first Sword of Shadow, to facing the ultimate lag foe. Dun dun dun. But thank you, and also thank you to the streamers who provide entertainment and that. So, 12 to 22, that's a pretty big jump. A lot happens when you're 12 years old, and then when you're 22 years old. What do you think about, I mean, you two have been here for a decade, along with me and some other folks. You know, a lot of us, we play video games. We love video games. Like, I remember Mario Brothers. I remember, you know, Pac-Man. And you have these memories. A decade-long memory is a long memory for a video game. Yeah. And it's something that really takes a special kind of game and a special kind of community to be able to really invest and become a part of like that. I mean, this isn't, I am the community manager and you are my minions. It's more, no, we're all friends here, right? This is one big group of
It's
folks.
more than friends, right? Like, the employees are essentially my family at this point. The players are my family. Probably I don't know if you want dark stories. I can tell you probably one of the most painful DDO stories. It's kind of on that level for me.
Sure.
So 2009, when I was the community manager leading up to Free-to-Play, we had an incident where before we could go free-to-play, there was a legal issue, and there was a big lawsuit, and it was a big lawsuit. And it was basically at a corporate level where companies are fighting it out, right? Because of that, we could say nothing about what was happening because of the ongoing litigation.
Right.
So that's a really tough position to be in as the community manager, because it meant several things. Number one is that no content was coming out because we were locked down and not allowed to release any more content at that point. Number two, it meant that we couldn't talk about the fact that we were even in a lawsuit. So there's no content and you can't say why. And number three, the players are still there. So they're like, well, where's my new quests?
Yeah.
Where's my new quests? I remember having a conversation with Terrence where before the legal issues had cropped up, we were deliberating the fact that Free-to-Play was going to take us longer to bring out than we thought. It was going to take us an extra month, but players didn't know it was coming because it was a secret. So we were like, oh man, how are we going to keep players entertained for a month? That month turned into 9 months. And so as a community manager, it was the most painful thing for my whole career, was just watching the community sort of just decay, because time would pass, no updates, couldn't say anything, couldn't tell them why I couldn't say anything, and you would just see them sort of give up and just drift away. And so the community just kept getting smaller and smaller, and then they would get angry, right? Because I'm trying to bring them activities because we don't have new content, so I'm trying to do like, hey, can we do contests? Hey, can we? The Chronicle was actually born out of that era.
Yeah.
And then, trying to bring stuff, and so then people reach that critical tipping point of, I hate you, why won't you tell us stuff? You're supposed to be our community manager, why won't you tell us anything? And I would basically just go home and sob every night. Because DDO was, these were my babies. Like, when you're the community manager, these are your babies, and your babies are in pain, and there's nothing you could do about it.
Sometimes they want to stab you.
Sometimes they want to stab you, but that's true of children too. Right. So finally, one day, a player happened to work in a legal office. Right. Saw the litigation paperwork come across their desk, saw the words Dungeons and Dragons Online, and went, what's this? It was public record at that point.
Yeah.
Took a copy, put it on the community forum, and said, hey guys, look what I just found. And then all of a sudden, the players put those pieces together and went, oh, that's why they're not talking to us. Yeah. That's why the content's not there. Oh my God. Oh, we're so sorry. And then all of a sudden, like, everybody, we're like this again. It's like, yeah, fight the man.
We still wanted that new player experience.
We still wanted that new player experience, right? And so that was us working on that game for 9 months, essentially, while we were trying to get through it and trying to keep the community from just tearing apart. And toughest part of my career.
Yeah. The nice thing is it has I believe what most people would say is a very happy ending.
Yes.
We launched as Free-to-Play on September 9th, 2009.
Yeah, and it was just
exploded,
off the charts.
And in many ways, when you look at, we can't get into population numbers and all that, but when you look at what happened with 2009, it was tremendous.
Yeah, I remember looking through a line graph when I was doing some analysis on when people had joined DDO, and I can see each month that a group of players has joined, right? And you would see, like, here's the bar, and you could see, right, when Free-to-Play started, it goes, like, off the screen. Just, boo, night and day. Yeah. Like, we're still bigger now than we were when we launched.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Back to the funny. Why did we never get chairs to sit in?
So I had a lengthy discussion with, I believe you guys saw Jeff already, right?
Yeah.
Jeff and a couple of the other artists when I first got here. And you start learning the priorities, right? And when you first come in the door, when you're fresh from the community as the roleplay person, you're like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and talk to these guys. Why can't I have my chairs, right? I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to see if I can get these chairs in. And that's sort of the moment that you start to realize what it actually is like to manage community. Because suddenly you have lots of mouths to feed. Because you can't just care about the role players anymore. You've got to care about, well, what are the raiders like? What are the non-role players like that aren't raiders either? And you suddenly realize the full breadth of different types of players in the community. So with the chairs, I sat down with the artists and I was like, all right, give it to me straight. How tough is it to get these chairs in? Like, what would it take? They're like, well, here's your choice, Amanda. If you want chairs in the game, you have to be willing to sacrifice 2 dungeons from an update. And so I had to stop and go, do I really want to say to a player, you couldn't have more quests this update because I wanted chairs, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was like, I just can't. I want the chairs so badly. We've even, over the years talked about, could we do it quickly? Does somebody have extra hour? Like, just, we've tried it, but every time it's always come down to chairs or this other piece of some other critical part of DDO, some bug fix, some new feature, some new class feature, some enhancement, a dungeon, a raid. Just the list goes on because there's so many parts to DDO. Yeah. And I was like, I just can't justify putting the chairs in for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a PA system. We never got our PA system either.
You know why we didn't get the PA system? Because that's called the global broadcast button that we have as administrators. Right. Once I got my global broadcast button, I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's a single line command. I can say anything I want. It boom, flashes on the server.
People have been to Lamania know I'm prone to abuse that pretty strongly.
That is the global PA system. Yeah. I used that many times over the years.
I don't know.
And I've got time to kill, so we're in no rush.
Let's see here. What else? We could talk about Gen Con stories, things like that. Gen Con it's interesting that DDO has only officially been on the floor of Gen Con once on a booth, and then once with Wizards of the Coast.
Once with Wizards.
I think that's it, right?
I think a third time we did possibly some bag stuffing. Like, even though we weren't physically there, we had formally put in merch.
But nonetheless, DDO and Gen Con have got this history together, which largely has to do with community.
Yeah.
Community folks, the community team, a lot of people, frankly, at Turbine go to Gen Con anyway. So it made sense, regardless of whether or not we had, say, a floor space and that sort of thing, to have a community, what has been adopted by CBD or CDBD the third, and that is Gathering for Buffs.
Yeah, Gathering for Buffs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gen Con remains one of the most fun things.
Yeah, it was always my vacation, right? And that's part of the reason we always would end up there. Is like, well, I'm going anyway. I'm going to bring some marketing stuff. I'm going to grab a couple of the people who want to come with me, and we're going to do this. It's always been one of my favorite vacations. I only miss it every couple of years, usually due to wedding anniversary stuff or things like that. But I always try to make it a point to go, and I always try to make it a point to do the player party, because that's kind of how we all started at Gen Con, right? It was player party gatherings.
I'm going to bring this thing out.
Oh, man.
I don't know how much the community's ever actually seen this thing.
Oh,
what in the world is going on? Now, I'm going to scare you
Adorn
right
it.
now.
You have to adorn it.
I am going to adorn this and then frighten everybody.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Now, what is the history of this fine piece of clothing?
This is so much of a big story. So, during... I can't even look at you. So, one of the penny... So, yeah, here, there you go.
We do all interviews with this one.
Yeah. So, at Penny Arcade Expo, which is one of the other big trade shows that... Oh my god, I can't even look. Jesus Christ. So at Penny Arcade Expo, as I put my blinders on,
I feel like Zoidberg.
Yeah, why not video? At Penny Arcade Expo is one of our big trade shows that we always would go to, especially in PAX East here in our backyard in Boston. We wanted to give out a piece of swag to people who were going to be attending the party. A lot of parties will give out like a hoodie or something like that. But one year we wanted to do a creative gift for people because Lord of the Rings Online was doing a joint party with us, and they had gotten cloaks, right?
Yeah.
And they had cloaks with like a cool symbol on the back. It's a little bit roleplay, but it was unique, right? So we were like, oh, well, maybe we should get something unique for the players, right?
Yeah.
So I talked to the marketing guys. I'm like, hey, see if you can find something unique. And they're like, well, like what? I'm like, well, I don't know. You see at the trade shows, people wear like, the Plants vs. Zombies cones, or they wear like all kinds of stuff. I'm like, maybe if we get like a hat or something cool, all right? So they decided, they're like, I know, we'll get Mind Flayer ski masks, because it was a little cold, it was March still, right? We're like, we'll get Mind Flayer ski masks.
Like,
it's Boston.
it's cold. Yeah.
So like, we'll get Mind Flayer ski masks. And so the person he found that was doing the ski masks was somebody who made these things by hand. And so he put in this order for like a ton of them, right? we got the order in, and then this was a while ago, so different people, but back then the supreme head of the studio at the time saw them and said, I do not want DDO players to be wearing those around a party. Like, I can't have masked vigilantes going to the party to where we can't identify who is there. I was like, okay, fair point.
I remember, so Taryn got one of them in for the first thing, and I went over to his desk for some unrelated reason, and he was like, Jerry, what do you think of this? And he put it on, and I was like, that's the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And then he wanted to get it in purple, like he wanted to do it purple originally to like be like a mind flayer, and instead it came in green, which is more Cthulhu.
Yeah, right.
And so it became this whole ordeal, and so then we like had to like, okay, forget it, going back to hoodies. so then we had all like, however many of these things we ordered, like just hanging out here because we kept trying to think of an occasion to like give them out.
Yep.
And we could never find a good one.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how they ended up being what they were.
Now, on the positive side here, I'm going to break a little news here.
Ooh.
And
Secrets.
show folks this.
Yeah.
We have a dice bag. This is being made for Turbine employees, that sort of thing. As part of our 10th anniversary, a whole bunch of people got it. It includes a couple of really nice dice. Let's see if I can get those in front of the camera. A couple of nice D10s and a really, really nice D20.
Yeah, so 2 D10s for 10th anniversary and then the D20, because you have to have a D20. You can't not have a D20.
And about 500 folks in the DDO community are going to be getting one.
That's correct. So we went through, we looked at the community, we looked at people who were sort of our top fans, right? People who've been with us from the beginning, consistently been VIPs, still playing actively today. Like even like last week, they're still playing since like they got 10 years of playing with DDO. People, that just supported and been a huge part. And so we've sent out the first big wave of them. I'm sure that there'll be stragglers because not everyone put their addresses in correctly in the system. I tried to groom many. I literally was grooming all 500 by hand myself over the last week. But essentially, we wanted to thank our top fans for sticking with us for 10 years. It's, we put in a little note. I'm not even going to spoil the note. For the players who get the gift, there's a little note inside waiting for you. It pretty much says everything that we would want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. We, as much as we would have loved to make 20,000, there was a certain budget involved. So that's why we ended up with 500. Sorry if you're number 507, but did the best we could on it. And we were doing a bunch of mailing yesterday on that.
Yeah, big mailing party. A big assembly line.
Yeah.
It was fun though. It was cool because we were put. Yeah. It's. I just got a reminder off camera to be like, you didn't have to just be a VIP to be part of the 500. We were looking for people who've just been with us thick and thin from the very beginning. So you didn't have to specifically be VIP, but coincidentally, there's a heavy overlap between people who are VIPs and people who've stuck with us for so long. Because those are the people that really care about the game. They're very passionate about it. They love to support it. But again, just because you're not VIP doesn't mean that you might not get one.
Yep.
But so I got a little derailed there. But we were talking about the
just mailing out the dice, all that sort of thing.
We basically gathered everybody together to start stuffing envelopes, putting labels on, putting stamps on, etc. And it was cool because we all came together. And we had a nice big long assembly line in our big, what we call our chill space, the area where people can sort of social and collaborate.
Not just because it's cold.
Not just because it's cold. It's a relaxation spot, right? If you need to get away from your desk for a moment, you can go sit, whatever you need to do. So we have everything lined up, we're packaging things, and there's people from different eras of the product's life, right? We had some people who were people who only came on the project recently, some people who've been with it through, beginning to end, and some people who only worked on it a little bit, and maybe they had moved on to different things like Lotro or whatever, but they still wanted to come over, and they still wanted to be like, I want to put these in envelopes, I want to have a hand in making sure that our top fans are getting these gifts. And then we would sort of walk down memory lane and talk about different stories, and some of the newcomers we would be telling them, back in my day in DDO, people died in the canyon in Kintera.
People died in the tutorial.
People died in the tutorial. They drowned to death.
How you could do it, right?
That was the number one thing when we did the data on early DDO, the old school tutorial. #1 place of death was drowning.
Yeah.
Because people would walk off that boat after the tutorial, fall in the water because we taught you to swim with an air bubble on your head.
Yeah.
So you never experienced what it was like to actually be in water. So people would get off the tutorial, be on the boat. The boat had a little rickety bridge that you had to cross because it was, Eberron and pirate themed. Many players went to step across the rickety bridge, fell off the edge, landed in the water, didn't understand that they were in the water. The drowning bar appeared. They had never seen the drowning bar before, and then boom, dead. Number one cause of death, drowning.
Yep. It was funny. We just recently we were doing, as we do sometimes, we pull data on how many people have died, who's running what, and all that sort of thing. And we had someone die in the current tutorial, and this was because, if I recall correctly, if you had really low health or something like that, you could take off a con item, probably.
Yeah, it had to
something
do
along
with
that,
equipment switching.
And I remember seeing that and going, "Aw, that brings back memories." Sorry to be if you were that person.
Well,
but,
yeah. That's what's tricky about DDO. You have such a breadth of character customization, such a breadth of equipment that it is so hard to predict for every situation that a player can have. Even at the most early stages of the game, there's all these variables that can change the way the player experiences it.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. Anything else you want to add?
Oh gosh, like I said, it's like you were saying, right? 10 years of memories. Like, how do you go through all of that, right?
The Marketplace 10.
Marketplace 10.
We haven't actually talked about that in the live stream here, which reminds me, we need to find the video.
Yes.
What was do you remember, what led up to doing that?
Yep. So, one of the topics that came up among our designers and our dungeon builders, there's a lot of overlap between the dungeon builders and the people that build the public areas, right? It requires a lot of the same skills, like placement of objects, setting up NPC dialogue, all that kind of stuff. And at the time, they were discussing the fact that, we wanted to do something kind of big and cool. We wanted to have a cool new event, but we also hated the way the old market tent looked. We hated the fact that it was this space that was very tiny, but when you stepped inside of it, it was super huge. It just felt awkward. It didn't feel magical. It just felt like somebody had messed up a measurement or something. So that was one problem. The second problem was inside the tent, we had these vendors, all your arcane ingredients and basic stuff. But the vendors were spread on all these different platforms, which is a real pain, right? So why make somebody run all the way up all these weird ramps, and then they would inevitably forget and get turned around? It was just a pain. So we're like, what? Why don't we just remodel this? And then in those discussions, this concept of, remodeling. What if we just burn it to the ground? We're like, well, what do you mean? It's like, what if we make an event where this thing gets attacked and it gets blown up, and then that lets us do whatever we want, and we can totally redo it. And so that sort of just evolved and ballooned into the eventual actual tent event, which was essentially, and this was really tricky too, over the course of weeks leading up to DDO's birthday back then, it's actually one of the reasons we don't do this anymore. We had this sort of gradually rolling out event where this new NPC showed up and said, hey guys, come to the marketplace, there's going to be a party. And that was just to get everybody physically in the place we wanted them to be. And once they got there, instead, there were these weird portals spawning, and there was weird little symbols, and there was weird sky things happening. And this was new for DDO. Normally the public spaces were very static, nothing really ever changed in them except Christmas. Actually, this was pre-Rezia, so even that didn't happen.
Right.
So the public spaces were always the same. You never saw different things unless the world patched. But this was the first time that players would be in the world. We hadn't taken the worlds down, and all of a sudden you would see, hey, where did that rune on the ground come from? Hey, where are these devil portals coming from? Hey, why is there a big funnel cloud lighting up in the sky? And we started unrolling this story about, oh my gosh, the plane of Shavrath is getting active, and they're going to come, we think they're going to attack us. And so different pieces of this event started lighting up gradually. The trick was, because it was so gradual, and it was so story-driven, and it was the first time we did it, a lot of players got super frustrated by it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't realize what was happening. It was just all what the heck is going on? And eventually, by the end, they got it, right? They're like, okay, this is an event. Clearly something special is going to happen.
Got it. But yeah, I remember, there was a lot of lag even during that event.
Yeah.
Just because
everybody wanted to see it.
Even, if I recall, you guys set the instance cap particularly low, and we were seeing 40, 50 instances of the marketplace.
Yeah, well above that, yeah. And then, you're talking per server. Each server had 40 plus.
Right.
It's just full of people, by the way. So yeah, it was packed because we reached a point where, so the trouble with fun stories in DDO is that you want to show people what the cool thing is, but you also don't want to spoil the story. But we didn't want people to miss this tent exploding, because we'd spent so much effort on making this cool explodey thing. Like when it hit the ground, it would send this rolling wave of fog throughout the whole zone. We even contemplated having a throwback effect, kind of like the Dragon Wing Buffet that would hit like everybody in the zone. The only reason we didn't do it was we were afraid of performance, that we would actually tank the server hitting everybody.
Right.
Because everybody was in the zone at the same time. So we'd spent so much on the visuals, like the thing would light on fire, pieces were flying everywhere. It's kind of like what you see in, if you've ever done the quest with Loth, and the temple is sort of falling apart all around you. That was happening to people in the public space live in real time, and they just had never seen that before, right? So we basically reached a point in the storytelling where we sort of broke the fourth wall and we said, hey guys, you better be there tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time because something cool's gonna happen.
Do you remember where the video is on this by any chance?
I do not. I know Glenn posted it at one point. I don't know if we ever posted it formally to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I ran into this when I was doing stuff, but unfortunately I had to kill it. We have a...
we also do have, I know I personally took a video because I went in stealth mode and I sort of like popped into a group of people so I could hear what people were saying, and it was fun to listen to people talk about it while it was happening, because it was, the tent is there, so the tent's here, all the players, they're all trying to get up to it because there's a big barrier that they can't get past that's magical, and everybody's just been jumping and jumping and jumping trying to get in there because they want to see if they can get inside, right? Well, once the big, like, you know, Independence Day style blast starts happening, players literally stopped, turned around, and tried to run away. Because they were like, oh god, I don't know what's happening. So they're like, ah, and everybody ran. I was like, this is amazing. You could just hear them in voice chat going, whoa, whoa guys, whoa, what's going on? I don't know. And they just, boom, just like ran away. And then it exploded, so then it explodes. Everybody goes rushing back in to be like, what happened, right? And there's this new quest. And they're like, where did this quest come from? I'm like, yep, you've discovered a new quest that wasn't there before. And that was when the subterrane started up. But yeah, it was, we had a video of it. It's one of the reasons that the Chronoscope got made was everybody talked about that tent for years. They still talk about the tent.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, we put so much energy into that thing, and it was a one-time thing. If you weren't there, you didn't get to experience it. And we're like, man, is there any way that we can, like, bring that back for people somehow? And that's where the Chronoscope came in. So we're like, okay, we're going to let people who want to see what it would have looked like go and see what it looked like to blow up the tent in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different experience. It was just really cool to see that, you know, this part of the game that had normally been so static has just been transformed, like right before like all these players' eyes. It was great.
Yeah, sure was. All right, Tolero. Well, I really appreciate you joining me here on the live stream here.
We really appreciate all you guys, though. It's been a great 10 years, and like I said, you know, at this point, the players are my family. So I just thank you so much for being a part of DDO.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you guys have fun. Me and the Mimic are going to go off and keep manning the fort.